Good afternoon, everyone. It's David Schlotthauer here with another detailed tropical weather outlook and discussion for Monday, July 29th, 2024. So here's a look at the latest GOES 16 True Color Visible Satellite Imagery provided by Dr. Levi Cowan at tropicaltidbits.com. There's a link in the description below this video, and as we can see here on the satellite imagery, we do have this tropical wave that is located roughly 50 degrees west in longitude by about almost 15 degrees north in latitude, and it's this mess of disturbed weather that the National Hurricane Center is watching as it moves generally towards the west-northwest at about 10 to 15 miles an hour. So areas like Puerto Rico, which is located right here, the U.S. British Virgin Islands, the Dominican Republic, as well as portions of Cuba, and of course over here near Florida and the Bahamas, really need to be watching this system closely, because if it doesn't develop, there's still going to be some impacts with some heavy rainfall and gusty winds. As matters of fact, the National Hurricane Center gives us a 50% chance of tropical development in the next 7 days, where we have the orange highlighted here on the map. It's this whole area, this polygon, that is over the Dominican Republic, over Cuba, over the Bahamas, over Florida, half of Florida, and even for portions of the Cayman Islands and Jamaica. Don't think Jamaica is going to get a whole lot of impacts out of this, but you guys are under that polygon, which you definitely need to be monitoring the latest updates from the NHC, because this does have a 50% chance of tropical development in the next week. But in the meantime, the East Pacific is putting on quite a show here with 3 areas to watch. One of those areas here is highlighted in red. This has an 80% chance of tropical development, and then the one down here has a 40 to 50% chance of tropical development in the next 7 days. And some of the models does show one of these becoming our next big hurricane in the Eastern Pacific. But as always, a lot of these storms will be moving away from land areas, so we're not going to be doing a whole lot of talking at all about this. We're going to spend all of our time the rest of this video on the Atlantic. But I just felt like it was a good idea to talk about the Eastern Pacific pretty quickly, because that's where we have a lot of that activity that will soon become the Atlantic's turn by the middle to end of August. So looking at the European model here, this is the surface wind forecast. And again, here is our wave envelope that we are watching right here. You can see the winds that are not straight across like we typically see over here over the Central Caribbean, and in fact we have winds that do this. So there is a wave envelope here in the next 2 days moving over the central windward islands. It's not a sharp wave. We're not talking about, oh, we got this wave that's going to close off into a tropical depression. No, it doesn't look to be that case in this forecast model. But eventually what ends up happening, and the reason why the NHC thinks that this is going to possibly develop, is once this gets into, let's go out to day 4. So this is for Friday morning, August the 2nd. We can start to see semblance of that wave getting a little tighter. We talked about this in yesterday's video, how the wave is broad to begin with. It's not very organized. That's why we're not seeing a lot of deep convection. It's really kind of starved by any deep convection. But what will end up likely happening is we will get some vort perturbations coming off of Hispaniola here, and this might allow some constructive development to the wave envelope here as it moves over the southeastern Bahamas. And when we go forward into day 5, we actually do see this wave getting a little tighter still on this model. You can see winds now more southwesterly, then they curve around like this out of the northeasterly direction. So we have a pretty good sharp wave here by Saturday morning on the 3rd of August. Now, once the wave gets into the northern Bahamas, this would be August the 4th and the August the 5th. Actually, yeah, Sunday morning, literally about 7 or so days from now, less than 7 days, we do have this bonifying and consolidating into a tropical depression with winds of about 30 to 35 miles an hour as this moves its way up the Florida coast, near Florida, and then possibly getting very close to the Carolinas. In fact, this does make landfall in South Carolina by Monday early next week. So this would be Monday night into Tuesday morning, August the 5th and the 6th. This is really far out, and I have to stress enough that just because we see it on one model does not mean it's a reliable forecast. And I'll show you why in a second. But on this model, we have winds of about 35 to 40 miles an hour. So it is a bit of a worryful tropical system, but it is not the worst case scenario here. If we look at the GFS model, we can see why that is. If we play this through, there's no wave at all essentially here on this model. In fact, you guys can probably point to me where the wave envelope is, and you'd probably not be correct on it because there's barely anything here. Not a lot of spin at all in the atmosphere. And when we go forward in time, it really struggles. There is barely a wave here at all on the GFS model. And this is for August the 3rd and August the 4th. So this would be the weekend, the first weekend of August at showing, oops, sorry, my PC likes to warn me about stupid stuff, some ads and things. So barely a wave here on this model forecast, which is good news here for a lot of you that live near Florida. And then it really takes all the way until Tuesday next week for this to consolidate. Now, this is an outlier scenario on the GFS, not because it's strengthening here, but because it's our most westerly outlier. We have seen some corrections with the Canadian model today. Remember how yesterday's runs had the system over here over the Gulf of Mexico? Now, in today's model run, we can see that the wave is a little bit more organized early on, and then it does try to make an attempt to move into the Gulf, but the center of the circulation is right over here over the eastern portion of Florida. In yesterday's run, we had it more over here. So there has been a correction to the European model in today's update on the Canadian forecast model. And then this model actually keeps it off the coast of the Carolinas entirely. So there's no landfall here. This would be a fish storm if it does develop around this period, so which is good news. But not good news that there will be some indirect impacts, maybe some heavy rain, gusty winds, that sort of thing, with winds about 20 to 30 miles an hour. But that does not move into the northeast, and it moves back out into the middle of the Atlantic. Now, the Icon model, which is a model that I don't like using in these videos, we will be using this one. And this is still somewhat of a possible scenario. You can see the circulation. Oops. Circulation is right here. So you can see winds coming in out of the southerly direction. Then they kind of turn around like that. So we do have a semblance of an area of spin and concentrated vorticity that moves over Florida, but notice none of the models have it as far west as the GFS model, which develops the system a lot later. And this model in particular has this system staying off the Carolina coast in similar fashion ensuing like the Canadian. Now there's one more model now outside of the scope of things. So we're going to take this to a whole new level. We're actually going to look all the way through the middle of August. Now, not because we have our wave that we need to see here, but there might be more to follow by middle of August. So let's kind of forward this really quickly. So first of all, we want to take a look at the APHIS over this system. Winds of about 20 miles an hour. So this actually 20 knots. So that's a little stronger than miles per hour, about 25. And then the system gets better organized, just like the European deterministic forecast. Now, I do find it a little hideous and interesting that none of the models, other than the APHIS, which is the artificial intelligence forecasting system off the Euro, shows another system. Now, this is one model. So don't get hooked up on one model thinking that, oh, we got to watch another wave. This is a very, very outlier scenario. And the reason why I'm talking about this is it's in the scope of 7 days. This is 144 hours out. So this is Sunday morning. This is Monday morning right here. It gets just to the south of, say, Puerto Rico, perhaps. And then beyond that, we're not going to go out beyond Tuesday morning, August the 6th. There is that first system, and then here comes the next disturbance. There might be more after that. Actually, I'll just go beyond this, but please do not rely on this model for any reasoning. This is a new model that just got released nearly a few months ago, actually 5 months ago. So it's not, we don't know how reliable it actually is yet till we do more studying. But it does show an additional system that does develop by the very end of the forecast period through, and this would be August the 13th. So keep that in mind. None of the models but the APHIS. Now remember, the APHIS, which is what this one is, and the GFS only go out to 384 hours out. So if we did look at the GFS really quickly for the sake of things, it's not showing anything. However, it is showing this a little bit of a wave. So we have northeasterly flow here. We have a little bit of southeasterly flow here. So there's a wave here at the same time that the APHIS model has that wave as well. So yeah, we might need to, we'll have to keep an eye on model trends to see if that actually sticks. Now, the question is, how much rainfall could this bring to a lot of you that live on these islands, including the Bahamas? Looks like the Bahamas on the Euro is taking the brunt of this in the next 7 days. This is through Monday morning, August the 5th. And what we have here is rainfall amounts anywhere between 2 to 4 inches. If you're in Puerto Rico, you're likely to see about an inch to maybe a couple of inches, maybe 1 to 2 to 3 inches of rain over the U.S. British Virgin Islands. The Windward Islands, likely to see only about a half an inch to maybe an inch of rainfall. So it looks like still on this model, most of the Bahamas could take the brunt of this tropical disturbance with the most rainfall. And some of these areas could see as much as 8 inches of rainfall. Now the GFS model is different, showing very little in the way of impacts over the Bahamas, with maybe about an inch of rain. More rain over the Dominican Republic and Jamaica, where you might, not Jamaica, actually Jamaica and Puerto Rico. So Puerto Rico here, Dominican here, and then Jamaica there. Anywhere between maybe 2 to 4 inches of rainfall, whereas the Windward Islands might only get about a half an inch to an inch. Now, it is very important with the westerly outlier here on the GFS, you're going to see more rain naturally with the tropical disturbance that moves in this general configuration. So areas like Tampa, Florida, or Cape Coral, Florida, you might see as much as 4 to 6 inches of rainfall in the same time frame. So now, in today's ensemble forecast from the Euro, there is less confidence that this could actually become a named storm. So I'm not going to spoil that in today's video. There's still very little confidence in terms of, in the short term, of how strong this is going to get. Likely a tropical wave still over the Bahamas, and then maybe, just maybe, a low-grade tropical storm as it glides up the southeastern coast of the United States, like the Carolina coast, then eventually maybe near Cape Hatteras, you might see a low-grade tropical storm. But none of these models do not indicate a hurricane or any sort of very strong tropical storm at all, which is good news for a lot of residents living in Florida, the Carolinas, and Georgia. You're likely, or on this particular run, you're not likely to see as big of impacts as what we thought, but there's still a lot of uncertainty. I want to make it clear, the National Hurricane Center, this orange area, does cover more than what the Euro shows. So until we get more better solution to the models, we're not going to be making assumptions, but right now the Euro has been the most consistent with its ensembles, with the majority of the model or the members off the coast of Florida, which is good news, and there's 51 of them running this ensemble. Now, looking at the GEFS model, this is what it looks like as of today. And again, there are some members showing a low-grade tropical storm and even one showing a tropical storm approaching the northern Gulf, but no hurricane at the moment. So that's good news for the time being. Other YouTube channels will be like, oh, we have a Gulf hurricane coming, or we have a Atlantic or a Bahamas hurricane coming. I would really not rely on those YouTube channels. I don't want to call them out. I don't want to be rude, but we're looking at this at raw data, and I'm not seeing any whatsoever indication to me that we're going to have a hurricane. Only a low-grade tropical storm that is 40-mile-an-hour winds or less for the time being. Yeah, there will be some impacts, but it does not look to be quite as bad as what we originally thought yesterday and the day before. As you all know, this does come with an uptick in tropical activity naturally during late July, early August. We can see that right here. This is the second to last day of July. So actually, no, wait. The third, there is 30 days. There is 31 days in July. I get confused sometimes with each month. So yeah, our third to last day of July is showing us right here that we are beginning to wind things up a little bit in the Atlantic, and then by early August we're definitely up there, and it's not usually until we get to the 15th or so of August when we really see that huge ramp up in tropical activity, and that's what we're going to be keeping a close eye on that APHIS model, because historically speaking we do get a ramp up in the tropics in the Atlantic. But the question is, will that actually come to fruition? Well, when looking at the EPS control forecast from the Ensemble from the Euro, this is the velocity potential Mercator projection, and what we have down here in the thumbnail is the Atlantic Basin. Okay, so I hope you all are able to see that just well enough as I am able to. Let me know if you do have a hard time seeing this, but this is what we're looking at. And when we box this in, let's bring our big old fat box out. This is that area, okay? So, and the time stamps are these lines right here. They go at an angle, or not at an angle, but across like latitude lines. And these are your longitude lines going up and down, up and down, up and down, like that. So when we take a look at this map, we can see where there are areas of favorability, areas of unfavorability. Right now, there is a patch of green that is moving over the eastern Pacific. That explains why we're going to see a couple of hurricanes, perhaps. That's the confidence in the ensembles and deterministic forecast, with the GFS indicating a Category 5 hurricane on its last few model runs. Not going to hit anyone, that's why I'm saying it, but it's going to be moving in this general direction, and it's going to form off this green patch, this convective coupled Kelvin wave. And eventually, that's going to be moving into the Atlantic by the time we go into mid-August, and we can see a lot of favorability here. There's a lot of green actually spreading all the way into the middle of the Atlantic. So now this is going to be an area we really got to focus on. From about the 10th, maybe the 11th of August and beyond, we're really going to have to watch things. Things can get really crazy really quickly during the typical ramp up of the Atlantic hurricane season, the meat of it, the peak of it. And the thing is, I cannot give you any more bad news than this. This is a look at the upper ocean heat content map, and what we're seeing is very high upper ocean heat content values in the Caribbean, and even in the southwestern Atlantic, we're approaching some of the orange colors here. We've got some yellows, some reds up here in the Gulf of Mexico. So again, during the meat of the hurricane season, during the second half of August into September, yeah, we're going to really have to keep an eye on where these systems move into, because we know they all come off of Africa. They either will go this way, or maybe even this way. Either way, they're going to be transversing some very warm, record warm at sea surface temperature water, and very high upper ocean heat content, and it's only a matter of time when the atmosphere will cooperate, and I do believe that's coming by the second half of August, from about the 10th to 15th and beyond. But anyways, if you did enjoy today's detailed tropical weather outlook and discussion on this tropical wave that is located just to the east of the Windward Islands, We're going to have to keep an eye on this as this moves generally west-northwestward. Any locations or anyone living in Jamaica, as well as Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, Cuba, and the Bahamas, definitely need to be watching this one still. There is a 50% from a 40% chance from yesterday from the NHC, including for perhaps Florida and the Carolinas. Do not want to be sleeping on this one just yet, as this could make a turn possibly for the worst. You just don't know. Some surprise development out of this. But anyways, if you did enjoy today's detailed tropical weather outlook and discussion, please subscribe if you haven't already, hit the like button, and share this video with your family and friends, and ring the bell notification icon. Hit that bell icon to get latest notifications and updates here on the channel. That's going to do it. I will be back with you more tomorrow.